For the last decade, I've taught people how to implement really great quality user experiences on the web primarily. Mostly it's been JavaScript, TypeScript, and React. Lots of testing, full stack with TypeScript. But implementation doesn't really matter as much anymore. I mean, like having those skills definitely where the agents are currently, you do need to be a skilled software engineer to build a really great software experience. But who knows how long that's going to continue to be super valuable? I don't. I certainly don't. It could be for many years into the future, or it could, just like a year ago, I could never have predicted where we are now. I can't predict where we're going to be in a year. And so, in thinking about what I'm going to teach next, in answer to your question, I have decided that, like, let's just play the future out, and let's say, like, if agents do end up taking over our entire industry and make us irrelevant, then, like, I don't know how to plan for that. You can't plan for that. And so what if I take one step back from that? What is the last skill that makes us as humans still be able to provide value? And I decided that it is the ability to know what to build. Like, what do you tell the agent to build? And that effectively means understanding problems really, really well. And maybe not necessarily being able to articulate the solution, the specific solution super well. I think, like I said, right now that is important. But having really, really good understanding of the problems and the use cases and your users, that matters a lot. And in fact, even if I'm wrong and agents are never able to replace us, this is the skill that we needed 50 years ago, and is what I think is the last skill you need to learn. And it's actually a pretty well understood discipline. It's product engineering is the term that most people use for this. And so I created or epic product.engineer. That's my new thing. In fact, I'm wearing the logo right here. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna just teach people how to develop product sense, how to understand and empathize with their users, how to tighten their feedback loop. Um, yeah, and develop clarity on the problem, how to talk to stakeholders, all of that.
That sounds like a very, very important mission. I think even more critical for our audience to understand right now here is that we believe this is the next future for software engineers, right? As we come into the world of agentic software development and autonomous development specifically. So without getting too deep into the details, can you give us a gist of what exactly makes a good product engineer, and where should people start acquiring those skills, and how should they go about it?
I think a common mistake that people make when they're thinking about product engineers and user empathy and all of that, so they're like, okay, a really good product engineer is one who listens to their users and does whatever the users say. Just like solve the user's problem all the time. But if you were to do that, like basically turn your user feedback thing into a prompt for the agent, like, first of all, that's not very valuable. I could automate that process if that's what this was. Um, the problem with that is users are often going to describe solutions rather than like taking a step back and looking at the product surface as a whole. So they're gonna say, well, I don't really like that I have to click on this button over here and do like these 3 steps right here. Can you like add an additional field so I don't have to do this or whatever? And if you just do that, you might miss the fact that, well, they shouldn't be doing that anyway. Instead, we have this other workflow that would be a lot more optimal for what they're trying to accomplish. And so it's not necessarily about just understanding and doing whatever your users want. It's truly understanding the job to be done. Like, what is the user trying to accomplish? And how can you simplify your solution to accomplish that better? Um, uh, and like really kind of disrupt their experience in solving the problems that they're trying to solve every day. So it's complicated, and it takes um, some serious domain knowledge. You have to really love your problem space. And I think one mistake that a lot of engineers make too is they love their solution and they just get so into the weeds of the solution that they miss that solution shouldn't exist, and instead we should kind of go back up what I call the problem tree and go a different direction that eliminates all the problems that we're having over here. Like no user is going to complain, or if you continue to iterate on this solution over here and the users are always complaining, you're iterating and making it better. But then we find out that like, oh, if I take in this other direction, we never needed to iterate on that because this other direction is better anyway. So that's what a product engineer does, is they see the product offering as a whole rather than individual features, and iterating on those to make those individual features better.
I used to be a product manager in one of my previous roles, and I used to be an engineer as well. Everything that you just described for me sounds a lot like the product management role. Can you draw the distinguishing line a little bit clearer for us?
Yeah, I think that's actually really a good thing to call out. So the way that I see it is that with the technology that we have now, product managers are actually able to do a lot more technical things than they used to, and engineers don't need to do those things as much, and they need to move closer to what product managers are. And so at some companies, these are not there's no distinction. Like at a really small company, sometimes it's just you and your co-founder, and so you're all wearing all the hats, right? But then as the company grows, you start to realize, okay, so there's some tasks that a less technical person can do. I can focus on the technical side, and so I'll be the engineer side of things. I think that agents make it so that you can continue and develop the solution longer before you feel that friction that requires another person to do the management side or even the engineering side. I do think that there is a distinction though, and it's possible that in the future it won't be as that distinction will kind of slowly get erased. But for right now, at least, engineers and the technical expertise is necessary to make the right kinds of decisions around, like technical decisions around how you architect the final solution. It could be that the agent gets good enough that it just asks you a couple questions, and then it's able to say, okay, well, we're gonna do this, that, and the other. We'll deploy it on this infra. We'll use this database. Or like we're in the middle of an existing project. Okay, we're gonna do this migration. We're gonna widen in the narrow. Like all of the technical decisions that a experienced software engineer would do. That could be in the future, but for right now, I think there is still a distinction between a product engineer and a product manager, um, where the product manager pulls in feedback from the outside world into like what the product solution could be. And the product engineer pulls the trade-offs and the capabilities of the technology into that same space. And then you can communicate in that way. But it requires, I think on both sides, it requires the product manager to understand the technology and the product engineer to understand the product, like the problem. So yeah, that's kind of a long way to answer your question. I do think that currently there's still a distinction, and I think that will continue, but it's possible that these things could merge, and you could have like a product manager or a product engineer, or like a product person, I guess, is the new thing. One who is, I'm more of a product or a technical kind of product person, or I'm more of a manager product person, but like we're both kind of doing similar things. I think that could be something in the future, but yeah, right now there is a distinction.
Personally, as an engineer by training, and I spent most of my career in engineering, I found myself often in that trajectory that you just mentioned, which is the trajectory of being so in love with my solution. And when I got to become a product manager at one of my previous startups, I really needed to unlearn that type of thinking. Can you give us some advice? How can you best, I would say, catch yourself almost in that thought?
So yeah, that definitely requires being kind of intentional and like mindful of yourself. But one thing that you can do that's relatively easy is watch your users use your software, because you might think that like, oh, this is so obvious, or this is so easy, or like what a beautiful solution, or especially for the really technical among us, we get so excited about how we solved this problem under the hood that never actually surfaces, in the user experience. And so if you're just watching the users use your software, and maybe this is like just after you shipped that optimization that you're just so excited about, and then you see that the user doesn't notice or care or doesn't actually impact their experience, yeah, it will hurt. Yeah, it'll hurt a bit. And then they start complaining about other things, or you see them, maybe they won't complain, but you'll see them struggle with other things, and you're like, that's the easiest thing. Like, it doesn't even require a lot of work or anything, but I can make a massive impact on their experience by just doing this one tiny little thing. Sometimes it'll be like a really significant thing. Like I said, you go back up the problem tree and you take a different direction, and it is a completely different workflow, possibly. You got to be careful on that too. But watching your users is probably the quickest way. Another really like a gold mine opportunity, depending on what software you're building, is support. Go like have lunch with support and ask them about what are people constantly asking you about, and what are tools that I could build for you to better serve our customers, but also what are things that I can build in the product that will make it so customers don't need to reach out to you ever. What are the just most common things? Because if somebody's reaching out to support, that means two things. It means they're really your customer, because if they care enough to reach out to support, then they care, and they're really interested. Sometimes you get people who are just complainers, but like most of those people are going to be like, no, I want this product to work for me. And then secondly, those are just really like those are the pain points that they felt like were strong enough to reach out to support. And if you can eliminate those problems, you free up time for support. Users don't like reaching out to support. It's annoying. It's very irritating. And so you can alleviate some of their annoyances with your product as well. So yeah, watch your users and have lunch with support.
That sounds like a really, really good piece of advice. I'm just iterating in my head back all the times. I run a little educational startup as a nonprofit with a good friend of mine, and he's really the user empathy person that really drills down on the experience and makes sure, okay, this is well suited solving the problem for that person, and ruthless on cutting down engineering our code that I've written, and in order to say like, this is great, but we don't need it. And I'm the person who always thinks about new features that we could build out, or things that could be amazing and more technical. And then sometimes I have to realize that it's not needed. So
Yeah, and it can be hard too, because you're like, I worked really hard on that, you know, and it's exciting for you, but it really comes down to, can you solve a real problem for a real person? And I think that this transition right now is hard for a lot of people who are in love with that solution camp. If you've just spent your entire career so far turning a Jira ticket into an implementation, then that's super replaceable. And it's kind of sad, especially if you really enjoyed that. Like that was your craft and you took really good care of it. And again, right now, the agents do need to be guided, like pretty, like depending on a variety of factors. CodeRabbit helps a lot with that process too, but it is becoming apparent to me that the actual implementation matters a lot less. It's the actually solving the problem that's the thing that matters most.
I agree. Let's talk a little bit about that transition that you just mentioned. What should people do they're prepared of? I'm thinking, for example, my previous career was in semiconductors. I had people working for 40 years in that field, had their PhD in knowing very much about embedded systems, understanding radar technology on a chip level. If all of that goes away, what do you tell a person that maybe is now in their mid 40s, still has 10, 15 years of career ahead of themselves? How do they prepare for impact?
Yeah, so first of all, let's get out of the way that nobody can predict the future. And then secondly, let's say that somehow agents do replace technical people completely. Um, we can't prepare for that. Like, there's just no uh, if it gets that good, then robots will be built that are able to do plumbing and stuff too. Like, so if it really gets that good, you just cannot prepare for that, and you just like hope that the people in power distribute that wealth
benefits.
to like humanity. Like that's just the hope. It's Star Trek and not the apocalypse, right? So with all of that context, let's back up from that and say that's not going to happen. So how do you prepare for the disruption that will happen? I think that the thing that's the most human is understanding problems and directing the AI to solve those problems. And so if you're in your 40s, you're like really smart with semiconductors or something. I don't know that world at all, so I can't give you a specific example of what you could do, but you probably like this is what humans get paid to do, is to solve problems. So focus on developing your ability to get clarity on the problem, to really understand the problem and how the skills that you have, which agents are now adopting, I guess, how those skills are applicable to that problem space. What things are missing in that problem space, and how do you fill in those gaps? When an implementation or a solution for a problem is very cheap and very fast, the bottleneck becomes identifying the right problem to solve.
Well said. I think that is a beautiful note to finish our conversation here. Thank you so much, Ken, for taking the time.
Thank you, Henrik. Appreciate it.